Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Scott Ritter, and Scott and I are going to talk about his new book. So, Scott, take over.
Take over. Well, because you're coughing
Right.
and I've got a head cold. So between the two of us, this is going to be one heck of an interview, Cynthia.
It'll
uh,
be fun.
it'll be fun. No, well, first of all, thanks for having me. No, I have a new book out, Clarity Press. The title of the book is Highway to Hell, The Armageddon Chronicles, 2014, 2015, I'm sorry, to 2024. I consider this to be the third book in a trilogy that I've written on nuclear weapons and arms control. The first book is Scorpion King, which is a history of America's addiction to nuclear weapons. The second book is Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, which talks about my experience as a weapons inspector in the former Soviet Union and illustrates sort of the reason why I believe arms control is absolutely essential for the survival of the world. And this is the third book. This book was originally envisioned to be a sort of an update on Scorpion King, to take the narrative from 2014 until today. The immediate impetus for this was the danger of nuclear war. And if you remember, all last spring and last summer, I was talking about how dangerous the situation in Ukraine is, how close we are to nuclear war,
Right.
and how ignorant the American people were of this danger. I continue to remind the American people that when the records are eventually declassified, we will find out how close we came to actual nuclear war in September and November of last year.
Hmm.
Indeed, Tucker Carlson has recently given an interview where he has, and I think others, Max Blumenthal and others have added to this, that um, when the Pentagon was talking about sending the long-range ATACMS or authorizing the long-range ATACMS missiles to be used by Ukraine, um, the CIA's assessment was that there was a greater than 50% chance that Russia would respond with a nuclear strike. And the Pentagon said, that's okay, do it anyways. I just want the American people to understand that the Pentagon doesn't give a damn about your life, that they're willing to throw it away. And I also want to reemphasize the statement made by the Strategic Command nuclear planner, who gave a lecture to a Washington, D.C. think tank last November, um, where he said that the Biden administration was ready to have a nuclear exchange with Russia, that was an exchange they thought they could have, they're ready for it, and they could win. But then he said something very interesting. He said, I don't think the American people understand what the consequences of this would be, and maybe we need to be honest with them. He said, life as we know it will never be the same. This is winning a nuclear war. Life as we know it will never be the same, because we will go from this modern era to survivalist Stone Age. Even if
Right.
we win, there will be no civil rights, no civil liberties. There will be no um, shopping centers, nothing. There will be food rationing. There will be martial law. There won't be cars. There won't be gasoline. Electricity will be rationed. There won't be the internet. There won't be any of the things that you want. And this is winning a nuclear war. Um, and he said, we might want to be more honest with the American people about this, because maybe if they were honest about it and the American people understood the danger of nuclear war, we wouldn't be so cavalier when the Pentagon says there's a greater than 50% chance that the Russians will use nuclear weapons in response to a stupid action that had no bearing on the battlefield. It was just about Joe Biden trying to score political points and tie up Donald Trump's hands. Nuclear war. This is what we're talking about. So I felt this book needed to be written, and I started a draft of the book. I started writing the book or preparing the draft sometime, I would say, in July. I didn't. I was actually planning on doing it later, because July I was supposed to be in Russia,
Right.
trying to stop nuclear war through a tour, but the State Department seized my passport. So July was now wide open for me. So I began to write the book and talk to people. I just again want to remind people that there was an op-ed written in the Hill back in I think late August, early September, authored by RFK Jr. and Donald Trump Jr. And the
Mhm.
op-ed talked about the need to avoid nuclear war and bring it into the conflict in Ukraine because that threatened nuclear war. Um, just so people know that the first several paragraphs of that article were written by me, because
I have a question for you. If Biden's hunger to be one up on Trump, he would have not hesitated to ruin this whole world. Would that assessment be correct?
it's not that he would not have hesitated. He did not hesitate. They entered a policy that had a greater than 50% chance of Russia using nuclear weapons. They did it.
Okay.
This isn't, they could have done it. They did it. So I just want to remind the audience again, when I say, because I know there's a lot of people very upset with Donald Trump right now. We don't have to talk about that today. And they're like, oh, this is horrible. You're alive.
Right.
Okay. If Kamala Harris had been elected president, you'd be dead. We'd be in a nuclear war with Russia because she would have continued a policy where the Pentagon cavalierly engaged in activities that they knew had a greater than 50% chance of Russia responding with nuclear weapons. This is
Hmm.
reality. It's not theory. It's not, hypothetical. It's the truth.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I decided I wanted to write this book, and I started working on it in July. Um, but on August 7th, my good friends at the local FBI office paid my house a visit. They very polite people. They knocked on the door and they were smiling and they gave me a search warrant and they came in my house and they took my electronics and they took my archive and all my research material. Literally, they took everything. I went down to the basement afterwards and they took my college honors thesis,
Oh, wow.
took all of my performance reports from the Marine Corps and from the United Nations. Um, you my high school sports records. They took everything. They took it because that's what the FBI does. But among the things they took was my work computer, and on that I had the drafts of two books. This book and another book I'm working on about scud hunting, my wartime experiences. And they also took several articles that we're working on. Um, and off they went. I told them how important it was to get these computers back, and I told them they wouldn't find anything on these computers. And they, very facetiously said, well, prioritize the order in which you would like us to investigate these and then return them to you. I said,
Oh,
sure.
boy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they've got them and they haven't returned them. And I don't know when they are going to return them. But the
If
point is
ever.
that book, no, they will because they're mine. And if they don't charge me, and they got nothing to charge me on, they will return. But the bottom line is the book was gone. So then the question is, what do I do? And anybody who's a writer knows that when you start a project and the project disappears, um, the prospect of starting from scratch is always very demoralizing because I don't know how other people write, but when I do write, I sort of pour myself into the product. Um, and it's a labor of love, but it's a labor. And then to have it disappear, trying to reconstruct what you had put in there, it was very I was very depressed from that. But
Hmm.
then I got angry. This anger is always a good, I want to tell people if you want to write, get mad because it helps you. I got angry because here I was working overtime trying to stop a nuclear war. And as I've told your audience, this wasn't, a nuclear conflict that existed in my brain. This was real. This kind of work I get paid. I used to get paid to be one of the best analysts in America, in the world, to discuss these issues. And so, here I am in my retirement, so to speak, and I see that we have a pattern developing that's going to lead to nuclear war, and I'm actively trying to create the conditions to prevent a nuclear war, and the government stopped me. And one of the things they did, because when they came into my house, their justification was that I was a Russian agent, that I was an unregistered agent of the Russian government. And to continue the logic, therefore, the work that I did in terms of submitting um, material as a contributor to RT and to Sputnik, that this was Russian propaganda, that this was something the Russian government was telling me to do, directing me to do. Um, this made me furious because the stuff I was publishing in RT and Sputnik was stuff that I came up with, like everything I publish. I came up with. There was no editing, there was no direction, there was no nothing. They simply published it because it got exposed to the other side of the equation. If you're going to have disarmament, it isn't just about convincing this side of the equation, the other side of the equation too. And RT English gives you a chance. Sputnik gets played in Russia and here. It's a chance to broaden the horizon, so to speak, to expand, the exposure of the what I'm trying to do. And I just got furious. And then, in preparing the book, I've been writing on this subject extensively. As I said, I've written, The Scorpion King was about this, but I've written a number of articles, and I had gone back to refresh my memory, and pulled up the articles that I had written on this. And suddenly I looked at them and I said, there's literally no difference in the content, in the tone, in the approach from articles I wrote in 2014 for the Huffington Post, articles I wrote in 2015 for Truthdig, articles I wrote in 2016 and 17 for the Washington Spectator, for the American Conservative, for Consortium News, articles I write for Energy Intelligence. There's no difference between the content there, the approach, than the articles I wrote for RT and Sputnik. I said, what would be cool is if I could capture all this chronologically, put it together in chapters that are tied thematically, but blend these articles so that the audience can see that a Sputnik article is the same damn thing, content-wise, intellectually, everything, as an American conservative article. So this isn't just a book about highlighting the dangers of nuclear war. This is a book about the importance of free speech, unfettered free speech. This is a book that says the United States government doesn't have any right to shut down any outlet that publishes the words of an American citizen. The words of an American citizen are sacrosanct. You can't touch it. The American government can't do a damn thing about it. And the FBI came in my house, stole my computers, and tried to shut me down, silence me, intimidate me, put a cloud over my reputation. So this book is the book the U.S. government didn't want me to write, but I wrote it anyways. And it's
Mm.
also a very timely book. It's a book that is exposing the dangers of nuclear war and the absolute necessity for arms control to mitigate these dangers. This is the other half of the equation. I think today, most Americans will say, yeah, nuclear war is a bad thing, dangerous. But how do you prevent it? And you prevent it through arms control. The last arms control treaty that's in place between Russia and the United States, New START, expires in February of 2026. That's less than a year away. And if that treaty expires, we are off to the races, a new nuclear arms race. And given the stupidity of the politics today, could very well lead to a nuclear war between the United States and Russia, the United States and China, and others. And it could lead to the proliferation of nuclear weapons. There's a lot of people saying that Iran should develop a nuclear bomb to stand up to the United States. But every expert I've talked to says if Iran gets a nuclear bomb, then Saudi gets it, Turkey gets it, boom. And then they say nuclear weapons not only will be proliferated, but they'll start being used, not by the United States, not by Russia, not by China, but by all these parties that have these weapons. They'll start using them. And then, the nuclear genie's out of the bottle, and we're all going to die. So, this is the importance I have attached to this book. The book couldn't be more timely, and I'm grateful that the Clarity Press had the courage to publish it, because it did take courage. When the FBI comes to the home of your author and tries to shut the author down, um, and accuses the author of being a Russian propagandist, it takes some courage for a publisher to say, no, we're going to publish you. We're going to put this. So this is also not just about my free speech, but this is about the defense of a free press. This book is an example of how important it is to have a free press. Free speech is what I say. A free press is how I get it out to people. And the United States government didn't want this book to be written, didn't want it to be published, didn't want the American people to have access to this information.
Now,
Well,
the
pound
your,
sand, Uncle Sam, pound sand.
all your previous books, were they published by the same publisher?
Lately, I mean, Clarity Press has been very kind. As you know, I had an all-paid vacation in Pennsylvania for a number of years, courtesy of
Mhm.
a cooked up case. And coming out of that, I mean, one of the purposes of this was either to get me killed in prison by labeling me as a sex offender, then putting me into a population that wanted to kill sex offenders. That didn't work. To keep me locked up forever. That didn't work because the prison warden said he's innocent, get him out of here. And they paroled me, even though I didn't plead guilty. But then when you come out, how do you get back into the mainstream? Because you've got a label on you now. And Clarity Press courageously stood up and said, we'll publish you. We like what you're saying. We understand the ludicrous nature of these charges. We'll publish you. And they had the courage to do it. So my first book I published with them was Deal Breaker. It was basically a history of how Donald Trump broke the Iran nuclear deal. It was an update of the my first book on Iran's nuclear program was called Target Iran. That was published, I think, in 2005. And and so Deal Breaker. Then after Deal Breaker, we did Scorpion King. After Scorpion King, we did gosh. I think after Scorpion King, we did Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika.
Okay.
Then we did the book with Anya Kay covering Ukraine, and now we have the Highway to Hell. So they've been Clarity Press has been a very loyal publisher. They stood up when nobody else would. Because I remember, shopping my manuscript around the Iran manuscript around, and a lot of publishers went, "Yeah, we love this book. We can't publish you, Scott. You've got that label, man. We can't touch you."
Wow.
And you just got rejection notice after rejection notice after, and from publishers. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, um, but there were some publishers that you would have thought never would have done that, but they were scared, and Clarity Press had the courage to do it. Diana Collier is the editor. She deserves all the credit in the world. So, hey, Diana, shout out.
Great. So, people can get the book how?
Right now, the book is available at the Clarity Press, claritypress.com website. You can order it direct. It's on what they call, look, publishing's changed. I've learned a lot about publishing lately. Um, and it used to be, for instance, when I published like with Nation Books, they'd have to make a decision what their initial run was going to be and how much, how many books they thought they'd sell and things of that nature. And it's a gamble because let's say you print 30,000 copies, and the book only sells 5,000. You got 25,000 copies out there in a warehouse. That costs you
Right.
a lot of money to print, and then they end up coming back, and you got to. And so what they do today is they they publish a smaller number of books that get sent out to the distributor that will be used as the sort of the feed into the Amazons and the Barnes and Nobles and the online shopping. But most books are ordered like if you go to the publisher um, and you order one book, the book is fed into a printer, and as you order the book, that order goes into the printer and it comes up on the queue and it says print their book, and books printed and off
Right.
they mail it to you. So right now you can order from Clarity Press and you will get a book that will come off the printer. It's the same book that gets published but the difference is now they're publishing one. The other ones require the machine to publish let's say they decide they're going to print up 2,000 copies of the book. They have to actually feed that into the printer, and there's a queue because there's actually a whole bunch of books that are being printed. And so you got to get into that queue, and then they got to print it, and that takes time. So that's going to happen within a week or so. Books are going to be in our Amazon. But now, right now, you can order the book from Clarity, and it will be turned around same day and in your hot little hands, so you can read the book the U.S. government didn't want written.
So, one aspect when you talked about free speech, uh, are you still banned from YouTube?
Oh yeah, YouTube has decided that.
No, I'm sorry, not YouTube, Facebook.
Oh yeah, Facebook too. Yeah, gone.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom's upset because that we used uh we would communicate on Messenger, and my mom's 90 years old. Facebook. My mom's 90 years old. All right. Facebook is her lifeline to her family and friends. That's it. She's confined to, she's got a walker. She can't get out. So she gets on the computer and she interacts with her family and friends. So, hey, Facebook, close your eyes, Cynthia. I'm going to do something I don't want you to see. No, I won't do it because I told her, but Facebook, you know what I'm doing. Okay, up yours. You guys are horrible people, horrible human beings. And so is YouTube. I mean, this is America, for God's sakes. Free speech. And because we have some pro-Zionist, pro-Israeli idiot who just got out of Unit 8200 or worked for the Israeli Security Service, now attached to the Facebook, information control team, and said, Scott Ritter is saying bad things about Israel. Shut him down forever. First of all, I didn't publish any of that crap on Facebook. I mean, Facebook, I would put my articles out there, but I didn't get on Facebook like I do on X and Hook and Jab. Facebook, I communicated with friends and family, including my mother, my 90-year-old mother, who lives at the computer. That's how she interfaces with her family until we get the chance to go out and visit her. And Facebook denied her that.
Wow.
You know, yeah, good people. Anybody, if she wasn't 90, if she was 70, I'd say, Mom, switch platforms. Dump Facebook. And that's what I recommend every American do. Dump Meta, whatever they call it. Dump Facebook. Don't reward these platforms. YouTube, shut it down. Shut it down. YouTube's not a free speech platform. If you go on YouTube, I know you use it, Cynthia, but because it's the most convenient thing out there. It's actually the best platform out there for this kind of podcasting, but it's not a free speech platform. And there's other platforms out there that are Rumble and things of that nature. So that anyways, if you allow me, do you have a follow-on question?
No?
I just want to talk about the book again and what it's going to lead to. Because
Okay.
oftentimes you ask me, what's next, Scott? So
Mhm.
I'm going to ask the question for you. What's
Okay.
next, Scott? And
Go
the
ahead.
we actually got a very exciting project that we're putting together. Um, Last December, we did a series of panels at the National Press Club about the danger of nuclear war. Um, and I just want to remind the people that when we do things like this, it's not just shouting in the wind. Um, we actually had an impact because prior to the National Press Club, we went and walked around Congress and met with very senior members of Congress and their staffs about the danger of Joe Biden's policy of greenlighting ATACMS missiles for use by Ukraine. We now know that there was a 55% chance that would lead to a Russian nuclear response, and Biden said to go anyways, to do it anyways. But at that time, I was just simply saying this could lead to a nuclear war. Boy, was I right. We actually got some members of Congress fired up about this. Then we had the panel, and some of their staff came to the panel. And one of the things we were saying is that Donald Trump has to, Congress has to put pressure on Biden, but Congress is saying, look, we're almost done. The Congress you're talking to is almost done. It's a lame duck Congress. We're not going to be able to take action until the new Congress comes in next year. I said, well, we may not have time. we're running out of time. This is a very dangerous situation. I want to remind the American people how dangerous it was. 55% chance that we could have a nuclear war with Russia because of this policy, and Joe Biden said do it anyways. So this isn't theoretical. While I was saying there's the danger of this, Biden was doing it knowing that his intelligence community said there's a better than 50% chance that Russia is going to respond with nuclear weapons. Um, that's how insane the world is that we live in. But but we actually got, we and others, because I remember talking to one person, very senior staff of a very senior member of Congress, who said that they would get to J.D. Vance and see if J.D. Vance could get to the big man, da da da. Uh, Donald Trump turned around and gave a statement that said this is bad policy, very dangerous, could lead to a nuclear war. It's the kind of statement that the Russians needed to hear. So maybe one of the reasons why the Russians didn't use nuclear weapons is that Donald Trump made a statement that said, when I'm president, I'll stop this insanity. They said, okay, we'll give him a chance. And maybe Donald Trump did that because of the pressure coming in from around him, including the pressure that we were putting on. So we're not just, spitting into the wind. We're actually doing things that have an impact. And now we're trying to move the ball on arms control. One of the panels that we did at the National Press Club in December was we had Theodore Postal, the MIT professor, weapons expert, give an illustrated walkthrough of what would happen when a 200 megaton nuclear weapon detonated over Washington, D.C., the physical destruction, what it meant. And he did it very graphically. And then we went and talked about it. When we finished, Dennis Kucinich, the former congressman from Ohio, he said, we need to take this on the road. This was very effective. We need to have Theodore Postal do a similar presentation for all the big cities around the country. And we need to go and scare the crap out of the American people, which is a great idea, except it costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. And I've been thinking about that, how to do that. And the idea was, do we prioritize 6 cities? Do we pick regions? How do we do it? But it always comes down to money and time. But then I came up with an idea. We're going to go to MIT, which is Boston, and we're going to do a dress rehearsal. It'll be a panel again. Theodore Postal will do the whole Boston thing, but the idea is it's going to be a workshop, and we're going to put our presentation, they get feedback from people on how to make it even better. And then, Cynthia, we're going to Hawaii. Now, you might say, Scott, you son of a bitch, why you're going to Hawaii just because of the weather and the beach and the surf?
I want to go with you.
Well, we'll see what can happen here. But and the people, I'm not gonna lie, I grew up in Hawaii, so I know what the weather is. It's paradise. I know what the beaches are like, paradise, and I know what the surf is like. When I was young, I could do it well. If I try to do it today, I'll probably drown, but still, it's Hawaii's great, but that's not why we're going. Why we're going to Hawaii is if you want to scare the American people, why not talk to the American people who were scared? There's only one place in America within recent history where American mothers woke up hearing a siren and seeing an announcement that said, incoming nuclear missiles, seek shelter. Now imagine being a mother as you just put your kids on the school bus and now you receive that. What do you do? Where do you even begin to go? Imagine being in Honolulu, getting out and running to shelter. And what shelter? Where do you go? This wasn't theoretical. These people believed they were under imminent attack, that a missile was inbound with a nuclear weapon that was going to end their life.
When was this?
This was a couple years ago in Hawaii. It was a stupid civil defense exercise that went crazy. It shouldn't have happened, but it was broadcast and people were running for their lives. Everybody in Hawaii thought they were going to die because of this. So we're going to go to Hawaii and show them what would have happened had that bomb hit.
Uh-huh.
We're going to show them what would have happened to their island, how they all would have died, what the consequences would have been. And then we're going to interview various people who were impacted that day and get their stories.
Wow.
And we're going to turn this into a documentary. And we're going to take that documentary city to city to city in America, put it on the internet so that people can see this. And the purpose of this is to get the American people to say, if we don't want to be in the situation where we're standing there helpless, believing we're going to be dead in the hand, and there's nothing we can do to help our family, our children are gone, our husbands at work, there's nothing we can do. There's no shelter to go to. We're going to die. Not theoretically, not, oh, we could die in the future. This was people being told the weapon's coming in right now. It's going to hit you right now. You're going to be dead right now. Well, I want to know what they were thinking. And I also want to know at that point in time, what was the number one priority in your life if you could go back in time? Now, confronted with the fact that you were going to die in a nuclear holocaust, if I could give you Hermione Granger's little thing where you can go back in time like they did on Harry Potter, and what would you do? Would you ask for arms control? Would you try to eliminate the weapons that are coming in? Would that become one of your number one priorities in life? And this is what has to happen, ladies and gentlemen, because we have less than a year before the New START treaty expires. And when it expires, we're off to the races in a new nuclear arms race that will ultimately lead to our deaths. Most Americans only think of this thing in abstracts, hypotheticals, what could happen. But when you watch a movie where your fellow citizens, not 40 years ago, 50 years, 80 years ago, this isn't about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is about Honolulu, Hawaii, a couple years ago. These are your peers. These are parents just like you are. These are people who go to work just like you do. And they stood there helpless, knowing they were going to die and there wasn't anything they could do about it. So now, confronted that, what are you going to do about today? What would happen if the sirens went off here? Where would you go? There's no place for you to go. You're going to die. Right now, you're like, well, that's just theoretical. No, 55% chance last fall of a nuclear war that would have ended all life. What are you doing about it, America? And that's the purpose of the documentary. So that's what we're going to be working on. Hopefully we'll get this thing done sometime in the summer, and see what we can do. But there's just no time. There's no time left. This has to happen now because that treaty ends in February. The quickest fix right now is to extend the treaty by 5 years. It take that time then to begin negotiating for a new follow-on treaty. But something has to be done to prevent the cap that we currently have on these nuclear weapons from expiring, because the pressure will be to deploy new weapons, new kinds of weapons, to seek nuclear advantages. And that just leads to, we've done this before. We've lived through an arms race that almost led to the annihilation of humanity. So why roll the dice again?
Now, I keep track of what's going on mainstream media, plus, on the alternative media. I have never heard of this incident in Hawaii before.
Look it up when you finish. I advise all your people do go Google it. Nuclear
Okay.
nuclear attack scare, Honolulu, Hawaii. Um, I think it might have been
You
pre-COVID.
think that would have scared Obama? He's from Hawaii too, right?
Yeah, but he lives in a multi-million-dollar home in Georgetown, Washington, D.C.
But he was raised in Hawaii. He comes from Hawaii.
It would
He should
scare
have been.
Obama if he had a conscience.
Mhm.
Barack
Okay.
Obama is a man that had no problem sending drones off to assassinate American citizens in violation of the Constitution. So if you think that that man has a conscience, you're wrong.
Wow. So, any final
And
thoughts?
the other thing I just want to say is I don't
Yes,
care about Obama. The commander in chief today is named Donald Trump.
you're right.
That's the guy I've got to move the needle on. I don't care about Biden, Obama, Clinton, any of these Bush. They're 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 dead presidents. They're people whose faces will appear on money sometime down the road. There's only one commander in chief right now. His name is Donald Trump.
Mhm.
And he's the only person I have to reach right now because he's the decision maker. He's the one that has to make a decision about arms control in the future.
Okay. Okay. So, you've been listening to Scott Ritter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. And if you like this show, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Scott, remember me when you go to Hawaii.
Okay. Well, you might be there, who knows? Who
That
knows
would
what's
be great.